Oh, this is just too good.
Here you go, straight from the field.
Thank you.
Anytime.
The man standing at the door of the huge farm equipment showroom looked like he didn't belong there. His boots were dusty, his shirt was faded, and a small boy held tightly to his hand. The employees barely looked up, until the man quietly said something that made the entire room fall silent. "I want 12 John Deeres today." At first, everyone laughed. But before the day ended, the laughter in that showroom would turn into stunned silence, and the man they mocked would walk out leaving behind a lesson none of them would ever forget. The glass doors of the dealership opened with a soft chime as Daniel Carter stepped inside. His 5-year-old son, Noah, clung to his rough hand, staring wide-eyed at the massive green tractors lined up across the showroom floor. To Noah, they looked like giants. Daniel paused for a moment, taking in the bright lights and polished machines. His boots left faint dusty prints on the spotless tile floor. A few salesmen glanced at him, then quickly looked away. They had seen people like him before, farm workers who came in just to look. Behind the main counter, 3 salesmen were chatting and laughing over coffee. One of them, Rick, noticed Daniel approaching and whispered to his co-workers, "Here comes another window shopper." The others smirked. Daniel walked slowly up to the counter, lifting Noah so the boy could see the tractors better. "Daddy," Noah whispered, "are these the ones?" Daniel smiled gently. "Yes, buddy. Just like the ones we talked about." Rick leaned against the counter lazily. "Can I help you?" Daniel nodded politely. "Yes. I want 12 John Deeres today." For a moment, the entire room went silent. Then laughter burst out. Rick actually clapped his hand on the counter. 12, he chuckled. "You mean 12 brochures?" The other salesman laughed loudly. Another employee muttered, "Maybe 12 toy tractors." Noah looked confused, squeezing his father's hand tighter. Daniel remained calm. "I'm serious," he said quietly. 12 tractors. The 8 are series. Rick wiped tears of laughter from his eyes. "Sir, those tractors cost over $300,000 each." Daniel nodded. "I know." More laughter. One of the men leaned forward mockingly. "Do you even know what that totals?" Daniel met his eyes. "About $3.6 million before taxes." The laughter slowed a little. Rick crossed his arms. "Look, buddy, we sell to large farm corporations. Not tourists." Daniel didn't react. Instead, he turned toward Noah. "Remember what Grandpa used to say?" he asked softly. Noah nodded. "Never argue with people who don't know your story." Daniel smiled proudly. Rick rolled his eyes. "All right, that's enough. If you're not buying anything, we have real customers to help." Daniel slowly reached into his old leather jacket. The salesman expected him to pull out a few crumpled bills, maybe a business card from some small farm. Instead, he placed a thick envelope on the counter. Rick raised an eyebrow. "What's this?" "Deposit," Daniel replied calmly. Rick opened it. Inside were certified bank checks. His smile vanished. He pulled one out. $500,000. Then another. And another. His co-workers leaned closer. Rick's face turned pale. You're serious?" he stammered. Daniel nodded. "I told you." Rick looked around nervously now. Where is your farm?" Daniel didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked across the showroom floor at the tractors. His eyes softened. 5 years ago," he said quietly, "I had nothing. My wife had just passed away. I had a newborn son and a small piece of land that everyone said was worthless." The room had grown quiet now. Even customers nearby were listening. Daniel continued. "Banks rejected me. Investors laughed. Even my neighbors told me to sell the land. He looked down at Noah. But I made a promise to my son that day. Rick swallowed hard. What promise? Daniel smiled faintly. That one day, we'd build the biggest farm in the county. Noah grinned proudly. And Daddy did it. Rick stared at the checks again. You're a farmer? Daniel nodded. 2,000 acres now. Wheat, corn, soybeans. And next season, we expand. The manager of the dealership had quietly walked over during the conversation. He looked at the checks. Then at Daniel. And suddenly his entire posture changed. Sir, he said respectfully, extending his hand, I'm Michael Grant, the dealership manager. I'd be honored to help you with this order. Rick stepped back awkwardly. His face had turned red. Daniel shook Michael's hand politely. Thank you. Michael turned to Rick sharply. Prepare a full purchase contract immediately. Rick nodded quickly. But Daniel stopped him. Actually, I'd prefer someone else. The room went silent again. Michael frowned slightly. Of course, sir. May I ask why? Daniel looked at Rick. His voice remained calm, but firm. Because when I walked in here, I was treated like I didn't belong. Rick looked down at the floor. Daniel continued. I don't mind laughter. Life gives plenty of reasons to laugh. He gently placed a hand on Noah's shoulder. But I don't teach my son to do business with people who judge others before they know them. Noah nodded seriously. Michael turned to a young woman standing quietly near the back of the showroom. Emily, he said, would you assist Mr. Carter? The young salesperson looked shocked. Yes, sir. She hurried forward nervously. But Daniel noticed something different about her. She hadn't laughed earlier. In fact, she had been the only one who didn't. Emily smiled kindly at Noah. Would you like to sit in one of the tractors while we talk? Noah's eyes lit up. Really? Daniel chuckled. Looks like you just made a customer for life. As Emily began preparing the paperwork, the other employees stood silently. Rick especially. The man he had laughed at was buying millions of dollars worth of equipment. But the biggest shock hadn't come yet. Because just before signing the final contract, Daniel said something that would change the dealership forever. And the room once again fell into stunned silence. I'd actually like to place another order next year, Daniel said calmly. Michael's eyes widened. For how many tractors? Daniel smiled. That depends. Everyone leaned in slightly. On how this dealership decides to treat the next dusty farmer who walks through that door. The message landed like thunder. No shouting. No anger. Just truth. Emily finished the paperwork and handed Daniel the contract. He signed it slowly. 12 tractors. $3.6 million. When he stood up to leave, Noah tugged his sleeve. Daddy? Yes, buddy? Why were they laughing earlier? Daniel crouched down beside him. Because sometimes people only see what's on the outside. Noah tilted his head. And what should they see? Daniel smiled warmly. Heart. Hard work. And the courage to keep going even when the world laughs. Noah thought about that, then nodded proudly. As Daniel and his son walked toward the exit, the entire showroom watched silently. The dusty man they had dismissed had just become their biggest customer of the year. But more importantly, he had left them with something far more valuable than money. Respect. And a reminder that success often arrives wearing dusty boots. And sometimes, the quietest person in the room is the one with the most powerful story.